네, 안녕하세요. 영어 시도인 연습 79일차 시작해 보겠습니다. 오늘도 어제와 마찬가지로 How to Talk Like a Native Speaker 이 영상을 보고 할 거고요. 네, 또 처음부터 한 주씩 따라하고 오늘은 발음 위주로 하고 안 되면 무한 반복해서 될 때까지 하는 걸로 한번 해보겠습니다. My story starts in Moscow.
I was 15
I
years
was
old.
15 years old.
My best friend and I, we were part of a group of Westerners
My best friend and I, we were part of a group of Westerners
visiting the Soviet Union.
visiting the
This
Soviet
was
Union.
in
This was
1987,
in
a few
1987,
years before
a
the
few
fall
years before the
of the
fall
communist
of the
regime.
communist regime.
We were given
We were
an
given
official
an
tour
official
guide
tour
who
guide
was
who
assigned to
was
us, and the
assigned to
tour
us,
would start in
and
the morning,
the tour would start in the morning,
and we were checked into our hotel rooms for the night.
and we were checked into our hotel rooms for the night.
My friend said morning, and we were checked into our hotel rooms for the night.
Hotel rooms for the night. We were checked into our hotel rooms for the night.
My friend said to me, "Let's go
My friend said to me, "Let's go
outside and look at the city."
outside and look at
I
the
thought
city."
it was a great idea.
I thought it was a great idea. Dumb idea.
So,
So
we grabbed
I
our
was-
coats
So we grabbed our coats
snuck out past security
and snuck out past security
and into the street.
and into the street.
Grabbed the city. I thought it was a great idea. Dumb idea.
Dumb idea.
So we grabbed our coats and we snuck out past security and into the street.
So we grabbed our coats and snuck out past security and into the street.
We found the entrance to the metro.
We found the entrance to the metro. We found the entrance to the metro.
The Moscow
The Moscow
Underground
underground transportation system is
the deepest one in the world.
the
The
deepest
ride
one
down
in
the
the
escalator
world.
took a full minute.
The ride down the escalator took a full minute.
Once we were
Once
down
we
there,
were
my
down
friend had
there,
it right to an open train, and
My
I
friend had it right on open train, and I
pulled him back. I
I
said,
put
"Wait,
him back and said, "Wait,
let's write
let's
down
write
the name
down
of the
the name
station
of the
so we
station
can find our way back."
so we can find our way back."
So I had a notepad, and I took a notepad, and I
So I had a notepad and I took a notepad.
wrote down the letters of the
I
station.
wrote down the letters of the station.
We hopped on the train
We hopped
and
on the
went some
train
train
and
hopping,
went on.
and that was
train
fun
hopping.
because
There was
well,
fun because
actually it was weird. There were
actually it was
people,
weird.
they
There were
probably all
a
coming
lot
home
of
from
people.
work,
They probably are coming home from work.
they were all dressed in brown and gray clothes.
They were all dressed in brown and gray clothes.
Looked very, very different from what we were used
They,
to at home.
it looked very different from what we were used to at home.
All dressed in brown and gray clothes, and it looked very, very different from what we were used to at home.
And it looked very different from what we were used to at home. They were all dressed in brown and gray clothes, and it looked very different from what we were used to at home.
But the stations were lovely. There were stations with statues, with paintings on the wall, and glass displays, and it was really like museums.
But the stations are very lovely. There are stations with statues and paintings on the wall and glass displays, and it was really like museums.
We would never have expected that. And
We will never expect that. We will never have expected that.
everything was perfectly clean.
Everything was perfectly
Well,
clean. Well,
What was weird though is that the people.
what was weird though is that the people
Nobody seemed to speak.
speak.
And everyone seemed to be looking at us. And it
And it kind of weirded us out. And it kind of weirded us out. Weirded us out.
That the people, nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us, and it kind of weirded us out. So
Weirded us out. Weirded us out.
was that the people, nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us.
And everyone seemed to be looking at us. And everyone seemed to be looking at us. And everyone seemed to be looking at us. And everyone seemed to be looking at us. And everyone seemed to be looking at us. And and everyone seemed to be looking at us, and everyone seemed to be looking at us,
Kind of weirded us out. So after
and it kind of weirded us out, and it kind of and it kind of weirded us, and it kind of weirded us out, and it kind of weirded us out.
about 20, 30 minutes, nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us. And
Nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us, and everyone seemed to be looking at us. Nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us, and it kind of weirded us out.
what was weird though is that the people, nobody seemed to speak, and
and
everyone seemed to
nobody
be
seemed to
looking
speak.
at us.
And everyone, 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 and everyone seemed to, and everyone seemed to be looking at us, and everyone seemed to be looking at us. Any kind of weirded us out, any kind of weirded us out, any kind of weirded us out,
Kind of weirded us out. So after
any kind of weirded us out, any kind of weirded us out, any kind of weirded us out, any kind of weirded us out.
about 20, 30 minutes, we had enough, and we weren't looking at us, and it
Us,
kind of
weirded
weirded
us
us out.
out.
So after about 20, 30 minutes,
So after about 20, 30 minutes, so after about 20, 30 minutes,
we had enough, and we wanted to go home.
we had enough and we wanted to go home.
It weirded us out.
So,
So after about 20,
like
30 minutes, we had enough, and we wanted to.
We'd had, we'd had enough, we'd had enough, we'd had enough, we'd had, we'd had enough, we'd had enough, we'd had enough, we'd had enough and we wanted home. We'd had enough and enough and we'd had enough and we wanted to go home. We had enough and we wanted to go home. We wanted wanted to go home. We wanted to go home. We'd had enough and we wanted to go home.
Looking at us, and it kind of weirded us out. So after about 20, 30 minutes, we had enough, and we wanted to go home.
We had enough and we wanted to go home.
I showed my note,
I showed my
to,
note
someone,
to
and
someone,
they
and
directed me over there.
They directed me. They directed me over there. They directed me over there.
That was not an option for us. So right over the stairs. What was weird though is that the people, nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us.
And everyone seemed to be looking at us.
It kind of weirded us out.
And it
So
kind
after
of
about
weirded
20,
us
30
out.
minutes,
So after about 20, 30 minutes,
we had enough, and we wanted to go
we'd
home.
had enough and we wanted to go home. We'd had enough and we wanted to go home. We'd had enough and we wanted to go home. We wanted to go home.
I showed my note
I showed my
to
note
someone,
to
and
someone,
they directed
and
me over there.
they directed me over there. They directed
We
me
wanted
over
to go
there.
home. I showed my note to someone, and they directed me over there.
They directed me over there. Directed me. They directed me over there. I showed my note to someone and they directed me over there.
Then over
And
there, I
over
showed
there,
my
I
note
showed
to
my
another
note to
person, and
another
they
person.
directed us to the other way. And then over there, I showed my note to another person, and they
Then over there, I showed my note to another person. I showed my note to
someone, and they directed me over there. Then over there, I showed my note to another person, and they directed us to the other way.
They directed us the other way. They directed us the other way. They directed us, directed us, directed me, directed us, directed me, directed me, directed me, directed us, directed us another day, another
And then
way.
a third person directed us sideways.
And then a third person directed us sideways, and then a third person directed us sideways.
That was a little confusing.
There's a little confusing. There is confusing. There's a little confusing.
Oh, then I saw it.
Then I saw
over
it
the stairs.
over the stairs.
sign.
The sign.
Turned out, I had written
I have written down the Russian word for after.
So we headed upstairs, and we
So we headed upstairs. So we headed upstairs and we found a taxi.
found a taxi.
We found a
that,
taxi. That was great. We told the driver, into this hotel, and he was willing to take us. And
remember sitting
and
next to the driver.
I remember sitting next to the driver.
Buddhist hotel, and then he was willing to take us.
And he was willing to take us, he was willing to take us.
I remember sitting next to the driver.
I remember sitting next to the driver, next to the driver, next to the driver.
In Tourist
Hotel.
Hotel, and he was willing to take us. And I remember sitting next to the driver.
Sitting next to the driver, sitting next to the driver, sitting next to the driver, sitting next to the driver.
Handing him 50 rubles.
Handing him 50
he
rubles.
Looked at me and he said,
he looked at me and he
"Нет,
said, "Нет,
dollar."
dollar."
$50.
$50.
That was
That was
like,
like 20 times that amount or something.
that was not an
That's
option.
not an option for us.
We had to get out of the taxi.
We had to get out of the taxi. He drove it. We had to get out of the taxi. We had to get out of the taxi. We had to get out of the
Not
taxi.
an option for us.
Not an
So we
option.
had to get out of the taxi.
So we had to get out of the taxi. So we had to get out 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 the taxi.
And he drove away.
And he drove away. And he drove away. And he drove away. And he drove away. And he drove away.
Leaving us standing
Leaving
there.
us standing
It was not an option for us. So we had to get out of the taxi. And
There's not an option for us. There is not an option for us. There is not an option for us.
20 times that amount or something.
20 times that amount or something. 20 times that amount or something. 20 times that amount or something.
That was not an option for us.
There was not an option for us. There was not an option for us. There was not an option. That was not an option for us. There is not an option for us. There is not an option for us.
So we had to get out of the taxi. And
So we had to get out the taxi. So we had to get out the taxi.
away.
And he drove
Leaving us
away.
standing there.
We were standing there.
It was a cold night.
It was cold night.
Everything
know,
was strange for us. and
Everything
we were
was strange
teenagers,
for
and
us. We were teenagers. We were teenagers.
We were pretty nervous. Didn't know what to
We
do.
were pretty nervous. Didn't know what to do.
We started walking.
We started walking.
To the end of the block.
We walked to the
Turned
end
the
of the
corner.
block. We turned the corner.
And 200
and
yards in front
200
of us.
yards in front
The
of us.
Tourist Hotel.
200 yards in the front of 200 yards in front of us. 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 The Tourist Hotel.
Well, this experience affected me in two ways.
This experience affected me in two ways.
The first
The
is
first
that
is that
anytime after this trip that I would hear
we hear
anyone speak Russian, I would just
anytime after this trip that I don't speak Russian.
cringe.
I was just cringe.
And the second one
The
is
second one is
it
that
taught me the
It
importance
told me the importance of understanding the local language when you're traveling,
and it actually led to me
and it actually
learning
led to
another
me
4 languages
learning
fluently over the
for
following
another
years.
4 languages fluently.
Me learning another 4 languages fluently over the following years. It taught me the importance
So
of understanding the local language when you're traveling. And it
And-
actually led to me
and it actually led to me
learning another 4 languages fluently over
another
the
four-
following years. It led to me
learning another 4 languages fluently over the following years.
Now, before I go on, I'd like to know
in the audience. Can you have a little bit of light in the
just
audience?
like to
Maybe
know
in the
who's-
audience. I'd like to
by show of hands who
who's-
is not a
by
native
show of
English.
hands, who is not a native English speaker.
It must be 99%.
It must be 99%.
Anyone who doesn't
Anyone
speak
who
English.
anyone who doesn't speak English stand up.
All right, so I can assume all of you have.
So I can assume all of you have. So I can
assume all of you.
Alright, so I can assume alright. Alright.
All right, so I can assume
all of you have gone through the process of learning a language. Anyone who speaks 3 or more languages?
Wow, that is.
Wow, that's
maybe
what
70%.
maybe 70%.
4 or more languages, anyone?
4 more languages.
Anyone speak 5 or more languages?
5 or more
Wow, come
languages.
see me during the break.
Come see me on during the break.
All right, well, to me, learning
To
a
me,
language is.
learning languages
For me, it's like,
it's like
a
a
deck of playing cards. Lying face down on the
lying
table.
face down on the
As
table,
you start-
lying face down on the table, down on the table, down on the table, down on the table, down on the table.
For me, it's like
It's
a deck of playing cards. Lying face
Face down on the table, lying face down on the table, lying face down on the table.
As you start
As you
learning
start
and
learning and understanding,
the cards start opening up for you.
the cards start opening up for you. The cards start opening. The cards start opening. The cards start opening up for you. Opening up for you. Opening up for you. The cards start opening up for you. The cards start opening up for you.
Now, there's no standard
There's no standard
way of classifying
way of
this, but as you learn, you
classifying
reach
this.
certain milestones.
Way of classifying this, classifying this, classifying this, classifying this, classifying this, classifying this, classifying this. There is no standard.
Now, there's no standard
There is no standard
way start opening up for you.
opening up for you.
Now, there's no standard
There's no standard. There's no standard
way of classifying this, but
way of classifying this. Now there's no standard way of classifying this. Now
there's no
standard
way of classifying this, but
way of
as you learn,
classifying
you reach
this.
certain milestones.
But as you learn, you reach certain milestones. You reach certain milestones.
There's no standard
Way of classifying this.
but as you learn, you reach certain milestones.
But as you learn, as you learn, you learn.
There's no standard way of classifying this, but as you learn, you reach certain
But
milestones.
as you learn, you reach you reach. But as you learn, you reach. But as you learn, you reach. You reach certain milestones. Certain.
Now, there's no standard
way
of classifying this, but as you learn, you reach certain milestones.
Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones. Certain milestones.
There's no standard way of classifying this, but as you learn, you reach certain milestones.
But as you learn, you reach. But as you learn, you reach. You run, 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 you reach. You learn, you learn, you reach. You learn, you reach. You learn, you reach.
There's no standard way of classifying this, but as you learn, you reach certain milestones.
But as you learn, you reach certain milestones. But as you learn, you reach certain milestones.
There's no standard way of classifying this, but as you learn, you reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25 this, but as you learn, you reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up.
And verse one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. When about 25% of the cards are turned up. And first one would be when when about 25% of the cards are turned up.
You reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. Reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. You reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. You reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are
when about 20% of when about 25% of
as you learn, you reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up.
When about 25%, when about 25%, when about 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. When about 25% of cards are turned up.
You reach certain milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. You reach
25% of the cards, percent 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 of the cards are turned up. Percent of the cards are turned up. Percent of the cards, percent of the card, 25% of the cards are turned up. 25% of the cards are turned up.
Milestones. And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up.
You reach basic level. would be when about 25% of the cars 25% of the cars percent of the cars percent of the cars when about 25% of the cars are turned up, you reach best fluency, best level, best level, best level, best level, best level, best level, best level.
First one would be
Okay,
when
when
about
about
25% of the cards are turned up, you reach like a basic level.
you reach you reach like a basic level.
At this level,
At this level, you have
a base vocabulary,
basic
some grammar,
vocabulary,
and
some grammar. You're able to have
very
maybe
simple conversations
very
and
simple
communicate a little bit.
conversation and communicate a little bit. And
Your study goes
your study
on
goes on,
until you reach
and your study goes on, your study goes on, your study goes on, your study goes on, and your study goes on,
and
your
your study
study
goes on until you reach this magical point
right.
of
Until you reach, until you reach, you reach, you reach, you reach, you reach, you reach, until you reach,
and your study
study
goes
goes
on
until you reach
this magical point
this magical
of
point,
fluency, what we call
this magical point of a fluency
your study goes
goes
on
on until
you
you
reach this magical point of fluency, what we call
magical point up, point up, point off, point off of fluency. 아이고.
the cards start with 25% of the cards are turned up, you reach like a basic level.
You reach
At
like
this
a basic
level,
level.
you have a base vocabulary,
At this level, you have a basic vocabulary,
some grammar.
vocabulary,
At this level, you have a base vocabulary,
vocabulary, base vocabulary,
some grammar,
some
and your
grammar, vocabulary,
At this level, you have a base vocabulary,
vocabulary. You have a base vocabulary,
some grammar,
some
and
grammar.
you're
You're
able
able
to
to
maybe very simple
have
conversations,
maybe
and
very
communicate
simple
a little bit.
conversation and communication a little bit.
Your study goes
Your
on
study goes on
until you reach this magical point of fluency.
of your magical point of
What we call
fluency.
being fluent, and it goes on until
And
you
you will
reach
reach
this magical
magical
point of
until you reach this magical point of
fluency.
fluency.
Your study
And
goes
goes
on until you reach this magical point of fluency.
of fluency of fluency of fluency of fluency of fluency.
Your study
And
goes
goes
on until you reach this magical point of fluency,
fluency.
what we call being fluent in a language.
What we call being fluent in a language. What we call being fluent in a language. What we call being fluent in a language. What we call being fluent in a language. What we call being fluent in a language. What we call being fluent in a language.
Until you reach this magical point of fluency, what we call your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency, what we call being fluent in a language.
What we call being fluent in the language. What we call being fluent in the language. What we call being fluent in the language. What we call being what we call being what we call being fluent. What we call being fluent in the fluency.
Language.
In the
Until
language.
you reach this magical
Magical
point
point
of
in-
fluency,
Until you reach this magical point of fluency.
what we call being
What we call
fluent in
being
a
fluent
language.
in a
Now, what
language.
does this mean?
What does
Being
this
fluent
mean?
in a language.
What does this mean? 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 What does this mean?
Language. Fluency, what we call being fluent in a language. Now,
What we
does this
call being fluent in a language. In a language.
until you reach this magical point of fluency,
Fluency.
what we call being fluent in a language.
In a language. In a language. In a language. In a language. In a language. In a language.
Now, what does this mean? Being
What does
fluent in
mean?
a language,
Being fluent
it
in a
means that
language.
you've
Being fluent in a language. What does this mean? Being fluent in a language.
turned up more than a language. Now, what does this mean? Being fluent in a language, it means that you've turned up
It means
more than
that-
50% of the cards.
It means
Does this
that
mean being fluent in a language? It means that you've turned up more than 50% of the cards
you turned up you turned
to the
up
deck. Being fluent in a language, it means that you've turned up more than 50% of
turned up more than 50%, turned up more than 50%, turned up more than 50%, turned up medium, turned up more than 50%, turned up more than 50%, turned 50%, 50%, 50%, 50%, turned up more than 50%.
Now, Now, what does this
What does it
mean?
mean? What
Being
does it
fluent in
mean?
a
What does this mean? What does this mean? What does it mean? What does this mean?
language, it means that you've
Being
turned up more than
being fluent, being fluency, being fluent.
language. Now, what does this
Mean.
mean? Being fluent in a language,
Being fluent in a language. Being fluent in a language.
it means that
It
you've
means
turned
that
up
you've
more than
turned up more than
50%
50%
of the
of
cards
the
in the deck.
50% of the cards in the deck. Cards in the deck. Cards in the deck. 50% of the cards in the deck.
And that is that you've turned up more than 50%
of the cards in the deck.
And that is the point where you have where the language becomes part of your subconscious.
where the language becomes part of your subconscious, your subconscious, subconscious.
That is the point where
That is
you
the point where you have
where the language
where
becomes
the
part of your
where
subconscious.
the language becomes language where the language becomes the language becomes the language becomes where the language becomes
That is the point where you have where the language becomes part of your subconscious.
part of your subconscious, part of your subconscious, where the language becomes part of your subconscious,
So that even
so
if
that
you don't
even if
use
you
it
don't
anymore
use
for
it
10
anymore,
years or longer,
for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use it anymore, so that even if you don't use
you
it
will not
anymore,
forget it. So that even if you don't use it anymore for
don't
10 years,
use it anymore, don't use it anymore, don't use it anymore,
where the language becomes part of your subconscious,
where the language becomes part of your subconscious, where the language becomes where the language becomes part of your subconscious,
so that even if
so
you
that
don't
if you
use it anymore for 10
so that even if you don't use it anymore, don't use it anymore,
years or longer, which becomes part of your
your
subconscious, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, you will not forget
for
it.
10 years or longer, for 10 years or longer, for 10 years or longer,
Go get back into it.
you can
within a
get
very,
back into it, you can get back into it, back into it, you can get back into
very,
it,
very short time or longer.
or
You will not forget it.
you will
You
not
can go
forget
get
it.
back into it. If you don't use
Use
it
it
anymore
anymore.
for 10
Don't
years or
use it
longer,
anymore. For 10 years
you will
or
not
longer,
forget it.
you will
You can
not
go
forget
get
it.
back into it
You can get
within a
back
very,
into
very
it
short time.
within a very, very short
So
time.
this is
So this is
back into it within a very, very short
within a
time.
within a within a within a within a very, very short time. Within a very, very short time. Within a very, very short time.
So forget it. You can go get back into it within a very, very short
You
time.
can get back into it. You can get back into it. You can get back into it within a very, very short time.
So
So this is
a level where
a level where
comfortable thinking in the language
you're comfortable thinking in a language,
comfortable communicating
and
in the language. You're comfortable thinking in the language and comfortable communicating in the language.
comfortable
Now, some people go
communicating
on
in a
and
language. Communicating.
comfortable communicating in the language.
Comfortable communicating in a language. Comfortable communicating in a language. Communicating in a language.
Now, some people go on
people go on,
and reach like a mastery level. by
which
that
like
time.
a mastery level, Some people go on,
Now, some people go on and
and
reach like a mastery level by that
which
time.
like a mastery level by the time,
You know classic
by the
literature in the other language.
classical literature in the other language,
Have maybe an
and
in-depth
have
knowledge of
maybe
specialized fields.
in-depth knowledge in a
Classic literature in the other language and have maybe an in-depth knowledge of specialized fields.
in-depth knowledge of specialized fields.
Now, some people go on and
Now some people go on, some people go on, some people go on, some people go on.
reach like a mass communicating.
Now,
Now, this is
this is
a level where
level where you're comfortable thinking in a language
comfortable communicating.
and comfortable communicating
Now, some
communicating in a language.
people go on
some
and
people go on,
reach like a mastery
you know,
level.
reach like a mastery level.
Now, some people go on and reach like a mastery level. By
You know, reach like a mastery level.
that time, you know
By
classic
that
literature and the
By
other
that time, you know classical literature. You know classical literature
language
in
and
the other
have maybe an
language,
in-depth knowledge of
and have
specialized
maybe
fields.
in-depth knowledge of specialized fields.
That's often the point taken in academia.
That's often the point taken in academia.
Maybe an in-depth knowledge of specialized fields.
Fields.
That's often the point taken in academia.
That's often the point taken in academia.
Maybe an in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. That's often the point taken in academia.
Point taken in.
Maybe an in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. That's often the point taken in academia. An in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. That's often the point taken in academia.
Taken in academia.
An in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. That's often the point taken in academia.
Taken in academia. That's often the point taken in academia.
For me, when I learned my first foreign language,
For me, what I learned.
I
네. 오늘 6분 때까지 주로 이제 뒤에 3분 정도를 열심히 했던 것 같습니다. 네. 다음 시간에 이제 6분 이상의 것들도 또 나가면 될 것 같습니다. 그래서 이번 주 안으로 10분 내로, 그러면 절반이 넘죠. 네, 50% 이상 완전히 외우는 것을 목표로 하면 좋겠습니다. 네, 오늘 19일차 마치겠습니다. 감사합니다.